All right. I am going to be talking about an author named Warlord Mall. And I did a book review on Fablehaven. I wasn't really into it, but I also know that he has several other books out there. So excuse the background noise. I live right behind Ralph, so they're loading and unloading right now. Anyways, there's a book series called The Beyonders, and it kind of is, well, I wouldn't say exactly, but it's kind of like Gregor the Underland Chronicles by Susan Collins. It's about people like us that go into a different world, right? With Gregor the Underlander, he just falls underneath the city of New York, and there's a whole underland. But where Warlord Mall's The Beyonders, there's two people named Jason and Rachel, and they're from this time here in the United States, and they're from two different states, and they get kind of summoned by an oracle in the city of, I believe, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's called Lyrian, the world of Lyrian, or Lyria, and they get summoned by this oracle because they really need help from this like wizard warlord named Maldor. And so this boy Jason, he's about 14, and this girl Rachel, she's about the same age, and they end up like getting warped, like going into this wormhole to this new world. And it's kind of weird because Jason falls through the mouth of a hippo, and Rachel ends up following this butterfly and goes like straight into a rock. So both of them get kind of like summoned by this oracle that brought them in, that kind of distracted them into their broken world. So let's talk about the very first book right here, The Beyonders, A World Without Heroes. So here it is. That's the first one by Warlord Mall, and that I believe on the throne right there is the Warlord Maldor. So this book is, I mean, you can see like it's nice and thick. It is about, I believe, like 450 pages. So it is definitely a good read. Pretty much all of them are about 450 to 500 pages. So you will get sucked into this. Now, the first book pretty much covers Jason and Rachel trying to gather these words. They're all about like syllables, and each person that kind of guards these words, once you grab all the words to form, when you gather all these letters to form the word, it could destroy Maldor. So they go around collecting these letters, and they're all scattered all over the world of Lyria. It's either Lyria or Lyrian, I'm sorry. And so Rachel and Jason, they get help from people that really don't like Maldor. There's a lot. It's like, I would say 90% of the people that live in this world are extremely afraid of Maldor. And they have every right to be, because he used to be an apprentice from two other, this was like a long time ago, two other wizards that were really well known. I cannot pronounce their names, but one starts with an O and the other one starts with like a Z, like Zokar. I think it's called like Zokar. Zokar was the strongest of all the three wizards. Maldor was an apprentice of Zokar, and in order to destroy each other, they have to have these words, right? So but yeah, so Jason and Rachel go around getting help from the only 10% of the people that want to have an uprising to try to bring down Maldor. So it is extremely adventurous, and I fell in love with this book. I I went to the library and checked this book out, and I fell in love with the first book. So then I went and checked out the second book, and then by the time I went to go check out the third book, the library didn't have it. What library carries a trilogy and leaves out the third book? So I was extremely mad. So I had to wait, a week and a half to get my book series in. So I was kind of really anxious, and finally now I'm like in the middle of, or actually I'm sorry, I'm at the beginning of the very last book. But anyway, so they end up going around finding these letters and trying to destroy Maldor. And I'm going to tell you, Brandon Mull, he has an amazing creative mind for characters. I'm talking, I've never ever like read something like this. I mean, he is extremely creative. A really good example there, in this first one, you learn about it's kind of sad. They're called displacers, and they work for Maldor. But of course, Jason and Rachel don't know that, but they find out. They find that out later, and there's a lot of deception here because Maldor creates such fear in this land that people who go against them die. They get tortured and die. So there's a lot of people kind of working for him. They don't want to, but it's either death or work for him, or just completely avoid Maldor altogether. But there's these characters called displacers. They literally like can take their arm off, their ear off, their eye off, and they can still see out of that eye. They can still hear out of that ear. They can still, no blood will be gushing out, and they can reattach it. So the advantage for Maldor is that if he wanted to hear your secrets, and he could take an ear from a displacer and put it on one of the Lyrians' ears, swap it, and they'll forever have that ear. So that Maldor can, spy on what the people are doing if there's any type of uprising. Even with the eyes. Most people, when they find out that they have an eye from a displacer, they normally wrap their eye so that eye cannot see, or same with the ear. It's either they cut their own ear off, or they put something in their ear so that the ear doesn't, hear their secrets. But yeah, so that's pretty much the first book. The second book is The Seed of Rebellion. So here is one of the king. His name is, or he is known as the Blind King. He is the leader of the rebellion that wants to go against Maldor, and this entire book is pretty much gathering that little 10% of the people that want to go against and take down Maldor. So that's pretty much what this whole book is about. In this book, you meet a bunch of amazing characters. And when I mean amazing characters, I mean like warriors and people who know this like type of spell. It's the only thing that brings down Maldor, and it's called Adamic, and it's like, I guess it's like, how do I say it? I get like wizardry and witchcraft or some shit like that. So, but you learn these words, and it can control you. It can do a lot of spells. And Rachel is an expert at Adamic, and she doesn't even know it. So that's one of the reasons why the Oracle had brought Rachel from the Beyond to come and help their world, because the Oracle knew that nobody in their own world could take down Maldor except for a Beyonder. So it's really cool that happens. And I love reading the part where every single time Rachel encounters someone that knows a little bit about Adamic, and these people only know a certain amount of Adamic because Maldor forbids it. If he knows that you're using Adamic, he will go out and try to kill you, because that is the only thing that can bring down Maldor. And Rachel, every person that she comes across, they're like, oh my gosh, can you stay here? If you stay here, I can teach you all that you need to know about Adamic, and your power. She has such an amazing power. So let me give you an example. She ends up stumbling across this oracle. It's another oracle. This oracle is like the greatest oracle, and she is the only one that knows Adamic very, very well. And she ends up knowing that Rachel knows Adamic, and she's just like, all my years that I've known Adamic, you've known in about, like, all my years put together, it took you 5 months to know all my years of Adamic, and you knew it in a couple months. So that's how good Rachel is. And she's getting even better and better, you know, throughout the book series. So it's really interesting to read about this. And not to mention Jason, of course, he got summoned down there too, because he ends up becoming an amazing swordsman. He has a really good arm to begin with, because back in his world he was a pitcher. So he played baseball and he was a pitcher, so he has a really good arm. And he ends up learning from the best. There's a group, a clan called the Amar Cabal, and they are like the best swordsmen, and the women are expert archers. And so the Amar Cabal, they're amazing. Like I said, when it comes to like him building characters and creating characters, man, Brandon Mull does not shy away from that. He is amazing. Like, I don't know what he does before he gets into writing books, but it is amazing. Let me give you an example. So when a child is born from the womb, they're untouched, all right? So they have this little seed, and the seed grows behind their neck, and it's covered by like a thin layer of skin, so they grow out their hair to kind of cover that spot. And let's say their very first death, they're about maybe 20 years old, right? So their body is in a very youthful prime state. They know 20 years of life, and let's say they die. What you do is you take that seed and you bury it in the ground, and in a couple months you're born again. So that's kind of like your soul. So you're born again, but you're born into that 20-year-old body, and when you're born, you still remember the 20 years that that you've lived. So let's say you die again for the third time. So you die again, you bury the seed, and now that's, 20, 40, 60 years that have already been, in your mind, but with the 20-year-old body. So the unfortunate thing is, if you accidentally die at the age of 5, for the rest of your life, or for the rest of your seed, you're gonna have a 5-year-old body. So a lot of this Amar Cabal clan, they like to die around the age of 20, 30, because that's where their body is at its most prime and youthfulness. So that's another character that's actually really awesome. There's a lot more, like, you have your trolls and your giants, but they're not just any kind of giants. They're like midgets during the day, and then once the sun sets, then they grow to be these like 8-foot, 12-foot giants. So it's there's so many more characters in here, and I can't go through all of them. So now I am at this book here, this very last book, Chasing the Prophecy, and I believe right there is Maldor, because there's no one else that's bald. So there's Brandon Mull, and I am still reading this, but I can go ahead and pretty much tell you what might happen. That they end up finally finding their, because this is the last book of the series, so I'm assuming that they fulfill the prophecy, which is taking down Maldor, and I'm not sure how it ends, which is great. And I'm not going to tell you anyways, because that's spoiler. So I'm assuming that they start the rebellion, and hoping that they succeed. If they didn't, I'm sure they'd be another book. But yeah, so I'm assuming that they succeed, and I really, really hope that since the only way to bring down Maldor is by Adamic, I hope that Rachel like kicks butt and takes him down with Adamic, and I'm actually very curious to see exactly how she takes down Maldor. But Maldor has a lot of people, a lot of creatures on his side because, you know, they're scared of him. So I'm really curious to see in the very end who sides with him and who doesn't. And there's also creatures that he has created by his magic. And they're called Toravors. And they're literally just a silhouette, a shadow. It's a silhouette. You can't see eyeballs. You can't see, you know, any type of feature. It's literally just a silhouette. And if you walk around him, it's just a thin shadow. That's it. So it's really weird. But they're extremely scary because the only time that they make any type of communication is when you're sleeping. And they go into your mind and literally torture you in your sleep. Like, they can create nasty dreams that really bring you to a sweat. And haven't you ever had a dream where you thought it was so real? That's exactly what these stupid creatures do. They're called Toravors. And there's two types. There's one that will always follow you, and you can't get rid of them unless Maldor calls them back. And then the only other way to get rid of them is if you ever see a Toravor that has a sword, it's a 99.9% chance that you will not win, except for the Blind King. He is the only person in the history of Lyria to ever take down four. I mean, no one has ever taken down one, and he's taken down four. So you can imagine that he is an amazing swordsman. And not to mention about part of the awesome character creations is that they can hear each other. They can talk through their minds. Only a certain amount of characters, maybe about 5 characters, are able to communicate with their mind and not their lips, which is actually really cool because that comes in super handy. And you also know what people are thinking, which is really cool. And the only people that know how to read the minds are the good people. So yay for that. If it was the bad person, that would really suck because he would know everything that you're thinking. So, but yeah, so that is Brandon Mall's the trilogy right here. The Beyonders. So that is my book review on the Beyonders, and I highly suggest going out and either checking them out in the library or buying them. I bought them because I want to read this again because it is just it's so amazing. And also there's so many characters that sometimes you literally have to go back to the other book and you're like, who is this person again? Like, I know his name, but who is he again? I mean, there's in the prophecy, in the very last one, you're supposed to remember like 15 characters, and sometimes I really do have to go back and I'm like, oh crap, who is this guy again? Oh, okay, you know? So, and another good thing is, at the beginning of the book, there's some characters where you really hate, but then towards the end, like now that I'm in the last book, you actually really love them. And then the other way around, where you really love them, and then by the end of the book, you're just like, oh man, I hate this guy. And it's just, Brandon, you are like, and you're amazing at character creation. So yay on that. But anyways, that is my book review on the Beyonders. Go out, read it, buy it, do whatever, spread the word. It's an amazing book. I give it 10 out of 10. Thank you for listening to my review.